Hi, I'm Mark Costello, Chief Exec of Meshed. This is another episode of our Mesh podcast. Today, myself and Derek, say hi, Derek,
Hi, Derek.
are joined by Russell Dalgleish. Russell is an international business person with a lot of experience across technology for quite a few years, not giving your age away, Russell, and the newly minted author of The Ask. How are you doing, Russell?
I'm very well. And it's a delight to be in the company of fellow Scots who could introduce a new author's book as newly minted. The audience will get that.
Well, listen, it's great to be here. Today, I wanted to meet you to just discuss business, where the economy is, where we think we're going, what we think the new world looks like, and all things AI. So we'll take it from the top. Why don't you just give us that snapshot of your career to date and what that looks like?
I suppose I'm most often described as a serial entrepreneur. I was in the past an angel investor. And today what I do is I build global communities. So I help to bring together people with a common interest and then help them to gain value from that relationship. The biggest success to date has been Scottish Business Network, which will be celebrating its 10th year later this year. And Scottish Business Network is our attempt to pull together people around the world who have an affinity for Scotland. They may be like ourselves with these accents, or they may have studied in Scotland, or just got a love for Scotland. And we've now got about 22,000 people across the globe in our network, across 72 countries, and they're all there when we have an ask for help. Put their hand up and go, yes, I'll help that person. Yes, I'll make that introduction. So it's a wonderful thing to see what community working well can do.
Amazing. It's funny you say that because having grown up in Scotland as we all have, asking people anything, it's kind of not in the culture, right?
Yeah, so I was brought up in a small borders town of Selkirk. My family can trace back the name to the town to the 1450s, right? So kind of Kent everyone in the town. Anyway, anything you did, someone would report back to your mother kind of thing. But I can remember two things. So one was that I was brought up by a father who would tell me, you have to do everything yourself in this world. You know, and even just a couple of years ago, the car broke down on the motorway and I was phoning him to tell him I was going to be late. And he goes, well, what are you doing phoning the AAA? You should be fixing it yourself. I'm going, I don't even know where the bonnet button is, Dad, right? So I was brought up to not ask for help. And the second one was at school. So I went through a schooling system where you would be, we left Selkirk and then returned when I was 10, and I'd be in a classroom with people I didn't know. Teacher would ask a question, I'd put my hand up to try and answer, and I'd get the answer wrong. And at that moment, I'd be ridiculed by the class for probably the next 10 years.
Aye.
Right?
Yep.
So those types of measures in our society restrict us from naturally being able to ask for help and also to take those risks, to sort of put our head above the parapet. And what happened for me was, in the mid to late 90s, I spent a lot of time in California. And this was people, building businesses out of garages. And what I discovered there was that everybody wanted to help me. They would only really meet me if I had an ask of them, because they would go, when we say, who are you, Russell? What we really want you to say, Russell, is to say, hello, I'm Russell. I'm building this, I need some help with this, so that they can respond and go, oh, I'll introduce you to this person. So I got this kind of world view completely changed, and I just completely adopted it. And it's been my mantra ever since.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I've not spent time working in California, but I came to London to work when I was 29. And sales at that point in Scotland, everybody took it so seriously and so piously, it was just very different. And then I came down to the city, and like the first thing that strikes you is just how enthused everybody is about getting out and making money.
Yeah.
And it almost like there's a Scottish thing that maybe it's not true anymore, but certainly in my youth, where you had to hide it under a bushel if you were good at sales, and you were almost seen like a sorcerer or something just because you were willing to go out and just get stuff done.
It's really interesting because I've sort of become quite interested in language as a key part of the Scottish psyche. So my Scots are like yourselves. It's people who've left Scotland, in effect. And we use words, and bushel's quite an interesting one, because we'll say you don't hide it under a bushel. We never use that word in any other context. It's like the phrase, it's legal tender.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
There's only one use you use that. Anyone who's Scottish will know it's legal tender. So another one is, your mother going for the messages.
Yes.
I told someone a story which consisted of the line, and my mother was going for messages.
They were like,
and he
"What?"
thought I was using some
Completely
social app or
bamboozled.
something. So these language points are very important because it kind of defines that culture. But the bigger one is we take this culture of me as a young man being in Scotland, being told to do everything myself, being told to never ask for help. But when we transition me out of my home community and put me in California, I don't know anyone. If I want to know how to get to work, how to pay tax, how to do this, I have to ask for help. So it forced me to start adopting those premises. And what happens is when you start asking for help, and help's always given, you go, well, I'll do this. But you also intrinsically have a cultural piece about the fact that you've helped me. I know inside I'm going to help you when you need help. And that's the real joy of this, is when people come to me and ask for help and I can help them.
So it's interesting you say that, because I am terrible at asking for help. My wife is constantly on at me for saying, Derek, you need to ask. So, whether that's work or even more so in our personal life, I'm useless around the house. My brother-in-law's absolutely brilliant. She's like, phone Robin, he'll help you. I'm like, no, because I don't like imposing on other people, but I love helping people.
So it's really that word imposing. So actually, it's not an imposition, because you ask me to help. You ask me for help.
Mm-hmm.
If I can do the help, that's good. It could be an introduction. So I introduce you to this man, and you go, Russell, thank you for that. And you go, oh, that was great to meet him.
Yeah.
We're off doing something together. So it's actually intrinsically how business works.
Yeah.
So, but we just have to get over that hump of using words like, feeling things like imposition.
Yeah.
And the way to do it is to practice.
Yeah.
So you go, Russell, would you appear on our podcast? Russell, would you do this? You also have to get used to answering these requests with a yes if you can. So someone phones me up and says, I have a business idea. Would you be interested in investing £1 million with me, Russell? No. Right? That's an easy one. But if someone phones me up and says, hey, Russell, saw you on that podcast with the guys, really thought you were good. Would you have 5 minutes to give me your advice on my business? I'm going to say yes. 1, my compliment for the day, so that's wonderful. And 2, the commitment's only 5 minutes. If someone writes to me and says, I'd like to buy you a coffee, you're going, well, hang on, we don't know each other. That's an hour-long commitment. And I'm getting paid by a cup of coffee, and I don't know if we'll be finished in 3 minutes. So it's trying to get the ask specific and something I can respond to.
Well, I'm glad you kind of bringing that back. So that's kind of how you see. You tell me, what is it that you want the reader to have achieved or thought about when they've finished reading your book?
So the ask helps people to formulate that. And I just want them to try it.
Yeah.
Right? So if we think about the world of sales, no one enjoys being sold to. People enjoy buying. So our job is to educate people so that when they want to buy what we do, they say, yes, please.
Yeah.
So, but you have to be out there all the time, actively participating, being visible. And if I think about anyone with a business, they've got an ask. They're sitting there going, sales pipeline's weak. I need more business.
Yeah.
But it's not a question of hammering the phones and going through everybody on your CRM and going, will you buy now? It's about going, well, hang on, who could help me with this? I'll phone up the guys at Meshed. They might be able to give me some advice. Maybe there's something we could do together. So it's asking, and always be asking.
Yeah.
I agree with that. It's funny you say that nobody likes being sold to.
Yeah.
I do like being sold to because I've done
I
sales
love it.
my whole life. I like when
As long as it's
somebody's
good.
good at it, right?
Yeah.
But that's the
Yeah.
point, right? Being sold to is not being sold to. It's somebody who can't read, like what you've said. They're not going to meet the person's needs.
Yeah.
They're trying to sell them something that they just don't want.
So my career is basically I'm a sales guy. I get lots of other titles, but basically I'm a sales guy. And my son was 8 years old, and he had to go to work and say, "What does your dad do?" So I wrote him I helped him with it. And I said, what I do is I help people. And my wife's going, "No, you don't. You try and sell people stuff." I'm going, no, because if I sell someone something and it helps them, it's all going to go well. If I sell them something they don't really want, it's not going to be a very good relationship going ahead. So I think we have this intrinsic desire to help. And the sales area is a really good way to do it because it tends to be doing it to new people. No?
Yeah.
Not the relationship one with the people we know, but just a new person. So if I'm talking to anyone and someone says to me, "Tell me what you do, Russell," or make an introduction, I'm going, I'm not really interested in that. I want to know how I can help you. And it was a brilliant ask at Scottish Business Network, which was, because if you're asked specific and something I can help with, it's best. So we had a room of 40 Scots in London, just at St. Paul's. And our speaker said, "Russell's asked me to be really specific. I want to meet the head of data science at the British Library." Now, you've got a random selection of 40 Scottish people in a room, so it's a pretty off chance anyone's going to know. And someone put their hand up and said, "My cousin's on the board of the British Library." And that's how it works.
Yeah.
Because it was so specific, we didn't have to think about it. If you come to me and say, "I'm looking to meet HR directors," the assumption is, I don't want to get this wrong. I don't want to, is it big companies, small companies? Is it that sector,
Exactly.
that sector? So it's being specific is so important.
I agree. I think it then ties also back to what the value proposition is as well, right? I think people don't like sales because they are being sold something where the value prop's not clearly defined, right? I think we're young in a young business and we're really trying to hammer home what our value proposition is. But I think that the key to making that fresh is to just keep asking the people who become customers and the people who choose not to become customers, what is it about our value proposition that did or didn't resonate with you? I think far too many sales organisations are far too transfixed on what their end numbers got to be and not transfixed on what exactly does this person that I'm trying to sell something to want.
I think you're right. I was thinking there while you were saying that about, I did a piece of work with a technology company in Birmingham, and the company was a really deep tech company. And I went, and things weren't going well. And part of what I did was I did a customer analysis piece for them and sort of went out to their customers and said, "What do you like? What don't you like?" 90% of the customers came back and said, their customer support's wonderful. So I went back to the company and I said, "You don't mention customer support on your website. You don't do this." They go, well, no, that's just that department over there. And actually, as part of the value proposition, the fact that they had real people, each with 20 years experience in the sector, who answered the telephone within 3 rings, that was really valuable to their clients.
Yeah.
Yes, the functionality was good, but that's what would keep the clients with them. And we transitioned the messaging to the advantages of working with a company that had that kind of support.
Yeah, and I wonder again, and this is why I think when we think about how we structure a business, you need as many voices as possible at the top end of a business, because I'm guaranteeing that business had a lot of tech guys at the top end of it. They're just obsessed with the product, right?
Yeah.
They just think that the customer support doesn't mean anything. You get, like, in the insurance market, you get brokers that really focus on being highly technical brokers, and that's all they focus on. But you need to get all of... This is why formulating a value prop's really hard and keeping it fresh, because you need to combine all the elements. And again, like, why do people buy iPhones? That's always my go-to. I've got an iPhone. It's expensive. The battery's rubbish, but I keep buying it. And why is it? It's not because the technology's amazing. It's because it does exactly what I need it to do.
It's interesting. If I look at B2B sales and developing a value proposition, so in B2B sales, I sell to someone and then they have end customers.
Yeah.
If you build your value proposition around their end customer, that's hugely compelling.
Yes.
Yeah. No, if you sit there and go, well, your end customers are suffering from this problem, and this is how our solutions addresses that, people love that because it's going to help them sell more because they've got the same problem of trying to win that. And sales has never been more important. We live in a world where the decision on a sale comes down to trust.
Yeah.
Right? We have procurement systems and we have pitch decks and all this stuff. But at the end of the day, we're trying to evaluate whether or not I can trust you to do what you said. And if I don't know you, it's doubly hard. So what you have to do is to come up with as many measures as possible to increase that trust. And it's been really interesting working within the diaspora sector because having commonality of family background really helps with trust. Because you and I spoke earlier and you said, we met at an event, Russell. And that kind of collision happens. But also, if my company happens to have, if I'm an insurance software company, and on my board is the ex-head of the two largest organizations for supporting insurance companies, that's just increased the trust in my company because those well-known individuals have done this. I did a turnaround for a company once who sold technology and their market was getting eaten by incoming US competition. They decided as a board to focus on the public sector, which they could defend their market share better. But they had one case study and nobody in the business understood it. So I went out and interviewed. They were in the HR space. So I found an organization that represented HR directors of councils. And I met with the 3 previous chairmen of that organization and said, would you like to come and just help us? It was my ask. And one of them said, well, I'm sitting at home bored, Russell. Yes, I'd love to do that. And the guy came in and advised us how to recreate our proposition for that sector. But he grew to trust us. He said, I really like you guys, Russell. I'll make the intros for you to the council leaders. I went, great. And he goes, but Russell, I'm not really sure you've listened when I've told you what the proposition is. So I'll just come with you to the meetings.
Brilliant.
I ended up being a bag carrier. But it worked because we successfully protected and then eventually sold that company.
I mean, so I think that I am good at the ask. I do, because a bit like Derek, I'm useless at DIY. I'm useless at anything. I mean, like, short of changing a light bulb, there's not much that my wife would even let me do in the house because I'd probably destroy stuff. But I've got no problem asking. But I love being asked as well, right? And I think what you're talking about is a cultural shift to create that butterfly effect. And I think that it's incumbent on people who go out and ask people for help that you also then tell the person anything you need. You come and speak to me and say, I'll see what I can do. I think people, and again, I'm going back to the Scottish thing because we're all jocks on this podcast. I think that there really is a reluctance from people in Scotland to say, so when you say, can you introduce me to that person? There's a huge reluctance to do it because people think that it's their name or whatever that's attached to that introduction. And ultimately, if someone asks me for an introduction to somebody and they can give me that value prop about why I should do it, it's up to the other person that I introduced them to whether they decide to have the meeting or whatever, right?
So for me, it's almost like an addiction. So from the moment we met, my brain was starting to go, who can I introduce you to?
Yeah.
So I've got 2 or 3 friends who hold incredibly senior positions within the insurance sector because all I've got is the word insurance. Now, I don't know if they will be of any use to you at all, but I know them and I've met you and the 2 of you will hit it off.
Yeah.
And then that will lead to opportunity. They will also say, thank you for introducing me to the guys from Mesh. That's really interesting what they're doing.
Yeah.
So it's not an imposition on me.
No.
I've got 2 people who now like me for what I've done.
Exactly.
I think it also comes back a bit to what you were saying about that, kind of know, like, and trust thing, as well as if the person asking you for the introduction, if you don't know them from Adam, then you're maybe going to be a bit more reluctant to go, okay, I'll introduce you to this person who I've known for 20 years and who I really respect. Whereas if you built up enough collateral...
Perhaps, but there's also the point that someone could message me at 10 o'clock today and say, Hi, Russell, I'm building this really exciting thing. Could you give me 5 minutes on the phone? I'm going to say yes, because for a 5-minute investment to a telephone call, I might just find something transformational.
Yeah.
And if on that 5 minutes, I go, this seems like a sensible human being, I'll ask them to send me some information.
Yeah.
And if if they do what they say, because that's how we do trust, if they send me it within 10 minutes, and then they maybe follow up the next day and ask me, did I get it?
Yeah.
I'm going to go, well, they were able to talk to me, the information looks good, and they're persistent. I'd like to introduce them to you. Because I kind of guess that. But the best example I've got is a company called Onfido. And I got approached by this chap, Hussein, who'd just come down from, I think it was Oxford, and he was a startup, and he was working out of it was basically the back of a pub at King's Cross. There was a small incubator, and they were doing something about introducing technology to automate the reference checking for people coming into to work in the UK. And incredibly clever guy, very well spoken. And he said to me, could I help with X, Y, and Z? And I said, yes, can you give me this? He sent me it that night. He phoned me the next day and said, did you get the information, Russell? Is there anything else you need? And then he asked me for help, and I gave him it, and bang, bang, bang. And then eventually he'd sort of got everything he needed from me, but was charming, and then moved on to the next person.
Yeah.
Hussein's just been awarded, I think it's just won Entrepreneur of the Year. His company exited for $2 billion out of California.
Oh, fantastic.
And to see that, and it was his characteristic of doing what he said he would do and being persistent without being annoying.
I think that's so
and his
important.
use of the telephone. You know, because I get a lot of emails, right? But just, hi, Russ, saying, just checking you got the information. Yes, I got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
You need the phone call. I agree with that, right? Even if it's just a voice note, you need that call. So, did you get any options?
No, it's like the guy who told me to buy Bitcoin. So what's interesting is that, you could think, oh, I'll be bitter and twisted, I missed that opportunity, but it just wasn't meant to be. So I've got a great spiritual belief in the fact that people are put in front of me for me to help them. So if I helped him at all, that's fantastic.
Great, yeah.
And sorry if I got any of the story wrong and I got the names wrong or anything, but it's the meaning of the story that's important. But for everybody in business today, we are about to go through the most incredible transformation led by technology, realignment of how international business works, sort of knock on from Brexit and then COVID into what's happening today, and climate change. These three issues are going to transform our world. And you've got to sit down and realize that we could be born anywhere on this planet. We just happen to have been born in the UK. We won the lottery
100%.
by being born in the UK, right? Okay. Free education system, free health service. I agree, things aren't perfect, but you travel the world and you speak to people. I spoke to someone in Brazil, and they were explaining to me how the legislation works against anyone in manufacturing. And you just realize the challenges people face. Someone telling me, oh, you don't know how difficult it is to run a fintech. I'm going, let me introduce you to my mate, Dennis, right? So Dennis is building a tech company out of Kiev. I did a call with him, and it was a Zoom call, and he was in his car, and he kept on going like that. And I said, is there a wasp in the car? He goes, no, the missile sirens have gone off, right?
Yeah,
now, and when you
start getting on it,
when you compare it to what's happening around the world, we are very fortunate in the UK. But it's our responsibility to use that. Look at the advantages. We've got the reputation of the UK around the world is superb. Don't read what you read in the press. Everybody else who wants to be an entrepreneur in the world typically has to learn English.
Yeah.
Right? Well, admittedly, we speak it with an accent, but that was a given. The time zone perspective, the passport.
Yeah.
And also, we live on this little island, which is probably going to suffer the effects of the worst of climate change later than everyone else, because it's got cooling water around about us. But we've got to use all these advantages now in actually pushing our business forward. And I don't think of it so much as business. I don't do this because, hey, this is a great way to make a profit. I could have made way more money just holding senior roles in companies. It's about making a difference. What we do has to make a difference. So we do that at Scottish Business Network. I'm so proud that when COP26 came to Glasgow, our membership got together and said we should do something. So we created the organisation Net Zero Nation, and we've helped 300 companies reduce their carbon footprint.
Superb.
Yeah.
What a result.
Yeah.
Right? And we do that on a commercial basis, and we build that company out because we know business. So that's what we do.
It's funny you say that. I had a rant on LinkedIn on Tuesday, and I'm fed up seeing British people or people who live in the UK going on about going to live in Dubai and how it's amazing. I'm really sick of it, right? And I've been to Dubai, not for me. Like living in 45 degrees and basically a big shopping mall, not for me. And I'm not trying to decry Dubai, but the UK, we're so good at talking ourselves down. And as you just said, there is so much more to be positive about. And I actually think, you can talk about government and all of that stuff. So let's talk about where the economy is today. You've mentioned that, that this big change is coming, which I agree with. You've got climate change, you've got AI changing, the geopolitical scene's changing, and where you can trade with is changing. What does your sense and business experience tell you about where we are today?
So the single most important thing is not to fear change. We know by looking at our lives that change happens all the time. But for some reason, our brain is hardwired into assuming tomorrow's going to be like today. COVID was a great example of that on a dramatic level. So we're seeing these changes happening in our society. So what we have to do is to work out how to adjust to that. So if I look at my own children, and then all 3 grown-up young men, we encourage them to be curious, to work hard, to learn new things when things came along. And that's actually basically what I would encourage everyone to do. So I am a natural engineer. So when someone gives me a new phone, I go through the settings and see what they all do. I've got a natural curiosity about that. So rather than going on hiring a social media expert to tell me about AI, what I do is I tried ChatGPT or tried one of these other ones just to see what they do. And then that gave me back results. And I thought, I'll try that again. Oh, this is really quite interesting. Look what I can do. And that education then allows us to start understand how this world is changing. So don't make your decisions based on social media or based on what's happening in the press. Do it based on your own experience. See what is actually happening.
It's really interesting you saying that. And actually, one of our previous guests, Dave Selleck, he'd mentioned that as an accountant who uses technology in really cool ways within his own practice. But his advice to accountants was very much just like, start using things, be curious, just work with it.
And it's really interesting. So I remember 12 years ago or something, at my consultancy Exalta, we were looking at hiring someone to come in to do social media for us. We're like, how do we use this LinkedIn thing? How can we use this? And people would come in and they'd quote us £5,000 a month and we'll do this. And we're going, that seems like an awful lot of money to be charging Scottish people. It can't be that difficult. And what we discovered was that if you zig when the market zags, you win. So we learned how to use LinkedIn ourselves and then started using it in a contrary way. So the social media people would come back and go, Russell, thought I'd point out you're not using LinkedIn right. I'm going, it's working for me. Because I don't care if I don't get any likes or any shares. I've got people phoning up wanting to buy stuff. I'm
That's
happy.
the most important
this is
thing.
Absolutely working for me. That's the only KPI I care about. So the LinkedIn experience has probably been the one I've been most curious about, and keeping on trying different things and switching things on and communicating in a different way. And that journey took me to becoming an author and a writer, because I stopped about 2 years ago now. I started journaling, where I would write down my thoughts. And then I started transforming these into an article that'd be relevant for people on LinkedIn. Not every article's relevant, but sometimes say, oh, that was useful. Thank you for telling us that. And every now and then I would write a little article in that way. And it was just a completely different way to use LinkedIn. And it's just been hugely successful as a way to promote the things I believe in and the things I'm trying to support.
I enjoy getting my little alert or notification on a Sunday night
Oh, yeah, the newsletter.
Russell Dalgleish with, was it letters from Linlithgow, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Thoughts. Yeah, so it's really interesting that. So I have met with people who are newsletter experts who have told me to stop doing a LinkedIn newsletter because I don't own the data. LinkedIn owns the data. And I go, well, I had a MailChimp email account, and over 5 years it grew to 600 subscribers. I've now got 6,500 subscribers for my LinkedIn newsletter, and I keep on meeting people that go, really like reading it on a Sunday night, Russell.
Yeah.
It's really easy to make. And what it allows me to use to reuse content as well. So I'm going, this kind of works for me. And most importantly, I'm enjoying doing it. Right? So it's a good way to share stuff and to promote things. So, but it's that element of curiosity rather than going, they're the experts. We've seen it a bit with ChatGPT, where people have built entire workflows or something round about ChatGPT 3.5 and then going, it doesn't work under ChatGPT 5.0. And I'm going, yeah, because that's not the intrinsic value of an AI assistant.
Mm-hmm.
Stop trying to program it and looking at these new versions coming out, and instead take your problem and see how this can help to automate or increase your reach or something, and be curious.
Yeah, it's funny, the whole LinkedIn police about AI posts. I don't think there's anything wrong with people using AI to help them gather their thoughts. I think it's pretty obvious when you can see it's just generic, right? But if you're just using it to gather your thoughts, and it puts the odd M dash in.
So a young man wrote to me with he wrote to me with a message which had been generated by AI. And he wrote to me, and the AI had generated the message, and it was obvious it had. But I responded, and then he came back to me, and it was a very badly written message this time. And he explained to me that he was in Africa, he wasn't an English speaker, so he used the AI to communicate. I then met with a friend who was dyslexic, who said, Russell, it's easier for me to communicate through the AI than person. And don't you use Grammarly, Russell? Because you've talked about the fact that you're just useless at writing, and it helps with all that.
Yeah.
So these are just tools, and I don't think anything's sort of black or white either. It's like if we end up working together and the conversation started over anything, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. So it's funny that you talk about change, you talk about people being resistant to change, and then there's an author called Novel Harari. I don't know if you've read his books, right? But he talks about, and I think he's a really smart guy, but sometimes I think he's a bit dumb at the same time. So he talks about, you're never going to be able to retrain a 55-year-old truck driver to be a software engineer in the future. But, if you look across the course of the last 100 years, anybody that's been doing exactly the same job for 30 years gets made redundant at some point, right? AI is going to make people's jobs redundant, but I don't think it's the catastrophe that anybody thinks it's going to be. I think all it is that people are going to get more efficient. And is it going to free up people to have more leisure time? I think there's a world where that might exist. My gut tells me it won't. But I don't think it's a catastrophe that we become more efficient at doing a lot of menial tasks, and people can then use their intellectual property in a much more efficient way.
So let's look at it on a world basis, right? So our concern is that this AI, use that as a broad marketing term, AI technology is going to affect our lives, right? So in comparison with a pandemic, or with someone invading your country, or your country you can't live in your country anymore because of climate change, or the fact that you're one of the vast majority of the population existing on less than $5 a day, a bit of AI is not really that much of a challenge. What we have to do, though, is we have to accept the fact that we're going to have to change. So I think the concern is if you have long-term financial commitments in your business, that makes change hard. So if you've got a lease on a property for 10 years to be a shop, then you've got to be. Are you going to be sure that's going to work for 10 years? If you've just bought a license for your CRM and you bought it for 5 years because you got a discount, are you sure you're going to be using that in 5 years? So it's just to think a little bit about how adaptable can I be. And it's interesting for me because I'm someone who has had no staff for 15 years. So and what I do is I work with people on a project basis because my workload goes like that. So I go to someone and say, look, would you come in and help me with this project? I'll pay you while we do that. And then when the project's over, you stop and I'll come back to you again when the next project comes along. So trying to build in this flexibility into our models is very important. And the other thing I would say as well is, and this is probably an argument against me, is don't always trust the expert. No, someone says, I'm the expert at this. Really, really understand. So we did it with social media people in the beginning, and I went, why aren't you millionaires? No, if you're really good at this, why aren't you millionaires? Because you don't know how to scale the business. Or there's reasons for it, right? So I tend to work with people who have done something and been very successful at it, because it kind of indicates to me they really do know what they're doing. So I think those are important points.
Yeah. So anybody, I think, that puts themselves up as an expert, as soon as you say I'm an expert in anything, you used to be an expert in it, because you lose curiosity if you think you know everything about it, right? I mean, I've been in the insurance market for 25 years. I know I don't look that old, but that I still figure out stuff about how our market works and the grey bits that people can't see from the outside, which when you're in an industry you start to understand. Sometimes I realise those grey bits are even greyer or less grey than I thought they were. And I think once you think you've cracked it, then it's your time's up.
Totally agree. And I think, I mean, I guess a bit like you, I've been doing what I've been doing for, 25 years at least. And, really it's business development that whole time. Some people might say that I was a business development expert, but every day I'm learning things. And sometimes it's actually trying to figure out the stuff that other people are telling you is the new best way to do something, and actually going, no, it's not.
No.
And quite often it comes back to the same old things that we've been doing for the last 20 years, which is picking up the phone and having conversations with people.
There's the other advantage we have in this world now, which is networks and experience, life experience is hugely valuable.
Yeah.
So I recently became chairman of an organisation called Engineer a Career in Glasgow, started by a wonderful young guy, Josh Robertson. He's a full-time engineer in his own right. But there's a real problem at the present moment in our university sector, where if you think about it, when my wife and I were at college or university, she was graduating, was applying for a job. So there'd be a job advertised, she would apply for it, 6 people would apply, they'd shortlist the 3 and they hired her, right? Those same things happen today, but those young people are using applicant tracking systems. They're getting buried in all this data, and there's tens of thousands of applicants for each job. So what's happening is the promise we made our children, go to school and work hard, go to university and you'll get a great job, is completely breaking at that point. And there's an entire generation who are also coming into a workforce, which is very different than it was when I was young. And the fact that when I was young, all the money was with the young people because they were the ones earning. Today, all the money is with the old generation. Yeah. It's just why young people are blocked from buying property and these kind of things because of this mismatch we've created. So I believe there's a huge responsibility on people of my age and my generation to spend time giving back, to helping these younger people to overcome these obstacles. And it could be helping someone write a CV, explaining the fact that rather than just randomly applying for jobs, think of the companies you want to work with. Why not get your LinkedIn profile fixed, connect with that person on LinkedIn, reach out to you guys for advice. There's these tools that we have to inform them of. And I really feel passionately about this incredible talent we have who are digitally aware. And what terms are we using to talk about this wonderful generation? We're calling them snowflakes. We're calling them... someone wrote a piece on LinkedIn and said that for the current generation coming out of university, their number one concern was mental health. I go, no, their number one concern is getting a job.
Yes.
Because it's... And yes, mental health is important, but mental health was important when I was young as well.
Aye.
But we're just blocking people and saying you're all like that. Young people have no attention. Young people are not as hardworking. These young people today are 10 times as hardworking as I was.
Yeah.
I went to college. I got a full grant. any additional money I got, I used on beer.
Yeah.
And I got a job and I kind of turned up and did stuff. These young people are starting side hustles. They're running. They're
Couldn't agree more.
incredible talent. And we have a responsibility to help them.
That's something that I'm very passionate about. I think we were discussing earlier. I've got a 7-year-old daughter and I've got twin daughters that are 2. And that label, I think the quality, and this is a broad brush, but I think the quality of 20-year-olds compared to what I was when I was 20 is night and day.
Yeah.
They're not all pissed all the time. For a kick-off, they are much more considerate about what's going on round about them.
Yeah.
And you're right, we have created an environment where they can't afford to buy a house, but I think that they will figure that out. And I think it's right. I think people, coming up for 50 and above, it's incumbent on us to do something to rectify that. I think they'll figure it out themselves. That's my view.
We just have to be ready when they reach out for help that we're there to help them.
Absolutely. So we've talked about the future of work and technology and all of that stuff. What's the future for you, and what do you...
So that's a good question. So I have a philosophy of life, which is I live life a day at a time due to my life experience. So I have no future plans at all. I just react to everything that happens at the moment. I'm at a stage in my career where I don't have to be writing business plans and starting new ventures. I'm here as an aid and a helper to other people who are driving their business.
Okay.
So my life's wonderful. I wait to react. So yesterday was a great example. So I was at Glasgow University, where I have the privilege to be their entrepreneur in residence. And I was in an area I'd never been in before in business. And we were talking about an amazing project that's been run between Glasgow University and Glasgow Art School, training people about using digitization, design, and art in terms of the human body and what's been developed in that way. And it was just amazing. And then the question then was, how could I help them? So I could make introductions in certain ways. And that's my life today, is simply to be there, and people will ask me for help and I'll do something. The big one in September is that we have Scottish Innovation Week taking place, and I'm doing a lot of work in that area because Scotland has got the most incredible research and development going on, but it's all under our bushel.
Yes.
And if you're in Scotland, you don't know that.
Yeah.
And we have to get out there and tell the world about it. So I wasn't aware of Glasgow University's Advanced Research Centre. An incredible building in the West End at the university, and they're doing world-leading things there. We look at the Scottish Government's programme of CivTech. This is the world's leading GovTech programme. Everyone's looking at going, we're really struggling to encourage small companies to come into the government sector to produce innovative solutions to improve the life of our citizens. Why have Scotland been able to do it?
Yeah.
Because we're really good at this, but we're not talking about it enough. So we need to broadcast that message to get more involved.
So you've used 2 Scottish words today that I'll for our non-Scottish listeners or watchers, I'll explain. So Kent means no, and messages means going for the shopping, which I've still never been Scottish my whole life, never figured out exactly what that means. But there's a Glasgow word that I think Scotland needs to embrace, and that's been gallus. We need to be out there. Because when I came, because I think I'm quite a gallus person, right?
You definitely
so
are.
Would you for our audience, would you give us a definition of gallus?
It's just being a wee bit more front-footed and chest out and going, this is what I am and this is how we're doing it, and being very confident about what you are and not being scared to say what you think and all of that stuff. And I think Scotland needs just a wee shunt of that more, right? And less hand wringing and less.
We've got so much that we should and could be shouting about, but
but
yeah, we don't, because we're kind of reserved.
But I mean, for a tiny wee country, right? You look at the businesses we produce. Skyscanner, world leading business. The boys up in Dundee, the computer games, unbelievable. Yeah. Chris van der Linden, one of the most impressive people I've ever met in my life. Brewdog, I'm not a beer drinker, and I didn't like their beer, but they have created.
I did like it when I
almost-
drunk beer.
they've created almost a cultural movement, right? But it's not just about shouting about it, because shouting about it is great, but I think it's the ripple of the butterfly effect of that. Because if as a country we've got a concise way of shouting about these stuff, it lets the next generation feed into that confidence.
I think we do something which is almost like a central planning. Let's get everyone together and do this. We don't need to do that, right? It's all done by individual connections. So someone in Glasgow's Advanced Research Centre I was working with, and they said, we're trying to do X, Y, and Z, and I got them introduced to people in California. That's enough.
Yeah.
That's all we have to do. That's that up and running. But we don't have to overthink it. We just have to encourage ourselves to do it more. So one of the things is, if we look at investment, right? So if I'm a Scottish company in Forfar and I'm trying to raise money, right? So nothing to do with politics or anything else, but you're on this island called Great Britain, and the fourth richest city in the world is London, and it's there. You get the train down in 4 hours, and it's to think like that. How do we use the assets at our disposal? And we've done for years, we've brought people into London and helped them. But when you were talking about being Gallus, I had a Gallus moment, which was we'd built Scottish Business Network to help Scottish companies come down to London. And there's suddenly been an explosion internationally of people reaching out to us and saying, you're obviously looking after the Scottish diaspora, Russell. We'd like to get involved. So we decided to pivot. So we would go from being help Scottish companies come into London to bringing together the diaspora around the world. That was our plan. Mm-hmm. So it's how to launch it. So we had an event that week in London. We had about 40 people in a room. We were in one of our favourite venues. But that night, I had to go to a burn supper. So, or a formal do. So I'm in full kilt and regalia. And I thought, this is the moment to do a relaunch. So I got up in front of the audience in full regalia and went, we are now going to change the organisation. Our mission now is going to be to connect Scots around the world to the benefit of Scotland. Are you with me? Standing ovation. That's being Gallus. And it was just happened to be the fact I'm there, and everyone's going, because the audience then go, you put a big effort and Russell brought the kilt down and everything.
I thought you were going to say something else there, and I thought we were going to have to put a parental warning on this podcast. No, I get that. I do think, because I've been out of Scotland, I was out of Scotland for a long, long time, nearly 20 years. I spent a long time in London, where we are today. One of my favourite places on the planet, London. You can feel the energy here. Yeah. We need to take a bit of that back up the road.
I think we also have to build those bridges to go, our world is the way our world is. Let's adapt to that world. I'm just one person. I can't change the world. I can maybe just help a couple of people on their journey. And I would say for anyone in the United Kingdom who isn't doing business in London today, I would say, why aren't you doing business in London? What is it about your product that doesn't fit a market here? This is the easiest market in the UK to do business in. Yeah. There are hundreds of people that would help you. Come down, we'll make introductions, people will help you. But you've got to commit. And the thing is that the story is, it's really expensive. I get a train here, I get a hotel for about £100 a night, and I'll maybe come down 2 days. So that's train down, hotel, train back.
Yeah, we do the same.
It's not as expensive as you may think it is, but you bloody fill your time.
Oh yeah.
Right? So I will work from getting off the train till 9 at night, when 10 at night we finish the dinner, and then breakfast meetings the next day. But I can get those meetings. Yeah. And the thing about energy centers like London, like San Francisco, like New York, these cities, is people are very precious about their time. So they will willingly give your time to meet you, but they don't want to have 4 meetings. No. They're going to go, right, let's do it. Yes. And you've got to be ready to react in that way.
100%. And yeah, the formalities fall away a bit. There's less of the chat. It's just getting down to business, and that's another learning piece for people coming down here. Look, it's been a real pleasure talking.
Oh, just before you finish, if I could just so what is your ask? What can I be helping you guys with?
Yeah, that's a good ask. So our business, our value prop is that we get rid of underinsurance for SMEs in the UK. So SMEs in the UK, no matter what talking head you speak to, AXA, Aviva, Allianz, still reckon it's 50-60% of businesses are underinsured.
Sorry, what does underinsured? Oh, sorry, so they don't have enough insurance.
They don't have the level of cover for their business, which is crazy, right? It's a crazy amount. Our value prop is that we go through accountants, plug into tax digital platforms like Xero and QuickBooks. We then take that data and make sure the customer is on a journey with us where we're informing them about changes they need to make throughout the lifetime of their policy. So the ask is, if you know any accountants you can introduce us to, that would be great. You said you've got some insurance guys that you can introduce us to, great. I suppose the ask goes back, what can we do for you? And how can we help you move things forward?
Well, if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to suggest a couple of people who would be good for your podcast.
That sounds great to me.
Brilliant.
Yeah. And so thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Just to wrap up, this has been a great conversation with Russell Dalgleish. His book, The Ask, is out now.
Yep.
And where can we buy it from?
Theask.scot.
Theask.scot. And is it available in digital format as well yet?
Digital and printed and soon to be audible.
Awesome.
Amazing. Are you doing the narration for Audible yourself?
I am. I wanted to do it myself just because there's probably certain words where my rolling R's will come in very handy.
Well, do you know what? Alex Ferguson's book Leading, I don't know if you've done that in Audible. I loved that book. But it would have been so much better if he'd just done it in his own voice.
Yeah.
Anyway, another great Scot. Thanks very much for your time. This has been a great chat. Thanks, Russell, Derek. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you now.